everyone. Let's see. Hi, everyone. As you're rejoining, I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's been an interesting kind of evening. Oops. We will get started momentarily. Let's see, just bear with me.
Did we all get bounced or just me?
No, it was a Zoom setting.
Wow.
So I apologize.
It happens.
And I have a couple things I have to do to get us going again. I'm sorry. We will be up and running momentarily. Okay. Tammy, if you can hear me, hang on 1 second. I will see what I can do for you.
It looks okay now. Before it looked totally different. But if you can hear me, I'm good.
Gremlins got to the computers is all I'm going to say. I apologize. So I'm up here having the freakouts and the IT guys telling me to breathe. So there you go. We're all set, and it looks like we have everybody except William. I'm going to ask him to, or is William here too? Let me see.
Can I do a mic check? Are you able to hear me, Nicole?
I am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It looks like we can hear everybody. Let's see. Okay. So let me see. I'm going to ask. Let's see. All right. So let me just get William back, and then we can, or let William know. And I'm moving Commissioner Goff over. We're getting everybody where they need to be. Thank you for your patience. Okay. All right, Chair Malare, I think we are finally ready to begin.
Perfect, thank you, Nicole. I'll call the meeting, let's see, February 24th, 2022, City of American Canyon Planning Commission meeting to order. If all of those that would like to stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see. Just the meeting announcement is stated on the agenda. Roll call, please, Nicole.
Yes, okay. So Commissioner Altman. Okay, we can't, just so you know, Commissioner Altman, I could read your lips, but we can't hear you. And Commissioner Goff, excuse me.
Here.
All right. Commissioner Navarro.
Here.
Commissioner Wong.
Here.
Sorry, that's Vice Chair Wong. Chair Malare.
Here.
All right.
All right, so calling onto public comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address City Council or American Canyon Fire Department District Board of items on interests that are not on the agenda and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City of American Canyon. It is recommended that the speakers are limited to their comments of 3 minutes each, and it is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the City Council or City of American Canyon Protection District on items on the agenda should comment via email prior to the start of the meeting, or to verbally comment on item during the meeting. To raise their hand button. If joining on a computer, press 9, and if joining by the phone. Do we have any public comment?
Is there public comment from any of our attendees at this time? If so, please raise your hand. This would be for items that are not on the agenda. Nobody is raising their hand.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to the agenda changes. Mr. Cooper, do we have any agenda changes?
Thank you, Chair Malari. We have no changes to the agenda tonight.
Moving right along then. The consent calendar, looking to get an approval for the minutes of the January 27, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Chair, I don't see the minutes actually linked in the agenda, so I wasn't able to review them.
They are, if you scroll down just past the agenda to the, they're there. But the link there wasn't a link created because there wasn't a cover page for the item.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Altman? Okay, Commissioner Altman, we still don't have audio for you. We might need you to dial in. Can you give me a thumbs up for an aye or a thumbs down for a no? Okay. We still can't hear you, sir. Let me see if I can. Oh. I will circle back to you, Commissioner Goff. Commissioner Navarro.
Aye.
Vice Chair Wong.
Aye.
Chair Malloy.
Aye. Do you need to circle back to?
Oh, yes, and Commissioner Altman?
He's abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. Nice lip reading there, thank you.
We'll be pros by the end of this. All right, so moving on to the business items. We have the first business of the PG&E substation landscaping project. The recommendation is to approve a landscaping plan for the PG&E substation at 3331 Broadway Street. That is a condition of approval for the PG&E Regional Center, file numbers PL21-0011 and PL21-0022. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, this is William, the American Canyon Planning, and I have a short presentation for the business item.
Perfect, thank you, William.
Can everybody see okay? Great. Good evening, Chair Malari, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the public. My name is William, here to give a presentation on the PG&E landscaping plan. So this project is actually located in 3331 Broadway Street. It's pretty much in the middle of the city. It's on the northwest corner of the intersection of Highway 29 and American Canyon Road. And the substation, it's been there in town for a very long time. To the west is the Canyon Plaza Shopping Center. To the south is the Safeway Shopping Center. And then to the east, we have the Village of Vintage Ranch Apartments. And then to the southeast, we have the Walgreens Shopping Center. So a little bit of background on this project. The project for the PG&E Center was approved in September of 2021. And that project, the applicant went through a design permit application as well as a variance for their site at 500 Boone Drive. And one of the requested items for the variance was to reduce their required landscaping for that site. So the Planning Commission reviewed it and they did approve the project with conditions. I'm going to give a quick summary of the 3 conditions that apply to this permit today. So condition 12 requires the applicant to provide 11,140 square feet of landscaping. And that's going to be provided off-site at the substation here at 3331 Broadway. It also requires them to incorporate recycled water, use deciduous and evergreen trees larger than 15 gallon in size, and to bring the plan back to the Planning Commission to review. So that's all condition 12. Condition 13 says that the landscaping has to be installed before occupancy of the PG&E Regional Center. And then lastly, condition 60 kind of reinforces condition 12. It says all landscaping shall be designed to use recycled water for irrigation. So since the landscaping that was required in the 500 Boone site was required to use recycled water, so does the landscaping here at 3331 Broadway. So that's why this project is coming back to the Planning Commission. Staff has reviewed some of the initial plans, and this iteration of the plan, we find that it's ready for your review. So the landscaping plan, I'll go over some of the features before showing the plan. The applicant is providing 12,087 square feet of landscaping. The landscaping includes 13 trees, 6 deodar cedar trees in 60-inch boxes, 3 California pepper trees in 60-inch boxes, and 4 crepe myrtles in 24-inch boxes. In addition to the landscaping, they're going to provide a 4-inch concrete strip to differentiate the private landscaping and the city landscaping. The city has existing landscaping there, about 16,000 square feet already, and it's kind of right in front with where our Welcome to American Canyon sign is. The applicant is required to connect to recycled water, and all of the landscaping is required to be installed prior to the certificate of occupancy for their regional center at 500 Boone. So this is how it looks, the landscaping plan here. The landscaping is basically facing Highway 29, and there's 2 sides to it. There is the city landscaping, and then there is the PG&E's proposed additional landscaping. I went ahead and did some color renderings of this to show you. So the city's landscaping is shown in yellow, and then the new proposed landscaping from PG&E is shown green. The cedar trees are in the orange circles, and then the pepper trees are shown in the darker blue circles. And then we have the crepe myrtles in red. Of course, the trees will be supported with the shrubs as well as ground cover to help screen the site overall. So that's all I have for the plan. Staff's recommendation is to approve the PG&E substation landscaping plan. And the applicant is also here, and they also have a presentation for the planning commission.
Perfect. Thank you, William. Is it Boris? Are you on deck for presentation?
I'm asking the team from PG&E to unmute themselves, and you can also show your cameras at this point.
It says the host stopped my camera, so Nicole, you probably need to.
There you go. Yep, I just did. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioners, thank you so much for this opportunity to come back and present our plans. To satisfy the conditions of approval of Napa Regional Center. We're very excited to meet your expectations and actually exceeding expectations. As part of our application, I invited our team to join me here today. I have project architect, Mr. Richard Price, and I have a landscape architect, Mr. Kevin Proctor, that join us, and I have our owner representative and project manager, Mr. Richard West. So we will move on with our presentation, and Richard Price will start off, please.
I am going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if that works. And all right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so this is a slightly different variation, but is closely tied to what Mr. He has just reviewed with us. So these are a little bit more technical type drawings, but let me just hop over here to our next. So this is a similar version of what the Mr. He has already shown, which is the conditions. This is as you can see, kind of a faded background of a photo of the existing site, and then an overlay of the line work of the landscaping that we are proposing here. So obviously here, hopefully you can see my cursor moving around, is the substation itself. It's fenced in. Next to that are some large high voltage towers and high voltage lines. There's the existing driveway off of Broadway into the service center for the ability for vehicles to go in and maintain and service that facility. Again, this is a little bit more color and a little bit more information regarding that overlay. And again, much like the presentation that William He had shown, we have new landscaping that kind of surrounds the existing city landscaping that's shown here. And we do, and I'll zoom in on a little bit of this. These are, and please, Kevin, if I misspeak on anything, please interrupt and speak up on your behalf. But the landscaping plants have been selected as part of the appropriate landscaping and plants for low water use and for the city of American Canyon and Napa County in terms of their appropriateness for this area. So again, you see the The deodar cedar tree here and the California pepper tree are a couple of the trees. There's crepe myrtle tree as an accent. I mean, it's like our as an accent tree, and then shrubs and ground cover. The drawing is regenerating here. Again, you can see here that from a technical perspective, we have indicated which of these trees are which. William He did a very nice job of accentuating that with a color diagram. I apologize. I think when I'm on Zoom, my computer tends to take a while to regenerate graphics. So I apologize for the delay in action here. Hopefully I won't get penalized for a delay of game. Wow, this is actually taking a lot longer than I expected. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and go to, it's not going to let me go to the next sheet until it finishes doing its thing here. You can see from this drawing, so again, the existing landscape that's here that you can see in the background, kind of a faded background. There's ground cover, there are shrubs. There is the sign here that faces the intersection. And very important to leave, so we kept larger landscaping back behind that so we wouldn't obstruct the view of that sign. It's also important to note from a not landscape but other improvements is that we are showing a hard border to better contain the landscaping, better identify the landscaping areas versus the hardscape areas, but maintaining that drive access for service vehicles into the service substation. We do have some shrubs aligning that entrance area as well as the ground cover to help screen that as best as possible. And again, wow, this it's freezing up on me. I apologize. It has totally, I'm going to stop share for just a moment, and let me see if that helps this presentation. Let me see if I can get it moving on here. And I'm going to stop my video, and hopefully that will help as well. Let's see what happens here.
Richard, check if you have too many applications right now open on your computer, and stop your video. That's for sure. That will help your bandwidth.
Yeah, I have almost nothing open, which is the surprising part. Let me. Open up a different version of that file, and I'm hoping that that will help as well. So Nicole, you aren't the only one that has gremlins in the machines tonight.
No, this meeting seems to be full of them tonight.
Well, you all are doing that. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Good.
So this is Kevin Proctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, Kevin.
Yes, Kevin.
I'm with the landscape architect team on this project. I just wanted to speak really quickly on two of the conditions. One being the reclaimed irrigation. So this new landscape that's going in is going to connect to the existing city system that's already a reclaimed system. So we're complying there. Another one was about the screen trees being at least 15 gallon. And I think PG&E is going above and beyond because as you've seen, we're placing some 60-inch box trees. So I think PG&E is really committing to beautifying this corner by placing some really large trees that'll have an instant impact.
Kevin, I think it's important to add that you and your colleagues helped us source these large trees from all the way from the north, close to Oregon border. It will take us several trucks to deliver each tree individually. And I believe we have 6 or 7 of those, the other cedars that we will source and bring in and plant on this site.
Right. It's quite an investment. Yeah.
Okay, can you see my screen again yet?
We see the screen.
Yes, you can see it.
Okay, let's see if this goes any better. Again, apologize for that. Did want to also bring up, so there are existing high voltage transmission power lines here. That's in the red. That is an area where we cannot place trees underneath for obvious kind of safety reasons. So that was kind of an off limits for any trees along this along the station. And I apologize, but our plans, just because of the way the sheets are oriented, it's 90 degrees from this. So hopefully that doesn't mess anyone up when we're looking at the different plans here. Again, this is, you know what, I'm apologizing. I think this is an older version, is it not? There we go. Okay, I think we're back. So that was the drawing that we were previously looking at. Again, these are the trees that are identified on the site plan. Sort of which tree goes where, which again, William He graciously provided an additional graphic on that. And that's probably why it was taking so long to regenerate. So we also have a photo overlay rendering of the site with the additional trees showing. So again, you see the sign that again, we're not blocking, and we have trees in the background that help screen that. We have the shrubs, and then of course the ground cover you can't see really from a street level view like this, but we do have that, the ground cover as well. So this is a rendering based off of actual photograph of what that landscaping might look like. My understanding, and Kevin, please correct me, but this is the trees as shown here. It's not when they're planted brand new, but it's also not when they're fully mature, which will get larger than this. Is that correct?
Oh, they'll certainly get larger than what you're depicting. I would think the larger Deodar cedars would come about 20 feet tall in those large boxes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So I believe this is like at about a 5-year growth.
Probably so. Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? Okay.
Right.
But they grow to 60 feet tall.
60 or a little bit more than that.
Yeah. And also speaking of the scale of the trees, it's important to add that the pepper trees are a different scale down. They're wider and also growing to up to 45 feet.
Okay, so they will get significantly taller than this. Again, they're not shown underneath these lines. The perspective might skew this a little bit, but there are no trees underneath these high voltage power lines that come out from the substation to service the community. Kevin or Boris, are there any other comments that you wanted to make about this?
Just if you can go back to the plan, please. Just wanted to explain that we are extending the existing retaining wall facing. Yes, thank you very much. Yes. And then, of course, concrete curb cuts and curbs just to separate the landscaping and to prevent any beautiful mulch that was installed by the city. A couple of years ago, we extending that area, and of course, we'll repave the access, so it will be looking quite good, actually, quite good. So concrete curbs, retaining wall, new pavement, new landscaping.
And we saw previously the species that we're proposing. You can see them there at the bottom. And those are really matching the existing plants that are already there at the corner. So this whole landscape will look contiguous, and they're all low water use and either native or adapted to this climate. So it'll just kind of all blend together.
Any questions, please?
Thank you guys for the presentation. We can open it up to any commissioner comments or questions at the moment.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I had a question. I'm looking at the placement of the larger trees, and when I look at the southern end, is it because of the sign? Is that why that most southern end really is sort of just like blank, even though it looks like that would be a good spot for a large tree?
I will take that. Commissioner Wong, if you can look at the plan, you can see two white covers, Richard, if you can point out. Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
So those two white covers are covering very large underground electric distribution, electric volts. And those underground conductors go from the substation in both directions across the American Canyon Boulevard and Broadway. And it was our intent also to come close to the southern corner, and without blocking the sign, the monument and the sign, we wanted to plant the trees, but it's absolutely impossible. We brought in our electric distribution experts. We looked into the current conductors underground, and actually there are three large volts and one small. So this is all our electric distribution coming out from the substation and moving into two directions across American Canyon Boulevard and Broadway. So we absolutely cannot plant large trees in that area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very observant question, and thank you very much.
Any other questions from the commission? Eric.
Yeah, well, looking at the plan, I'm going to focus in a little different area, but on that more southern side. Behind the Welcome to American Canyon sign, there is one large tree going in, and in the photographic display, looks good. Then there are other trees that are going to remain. And then there's another circle shown. I don't know what's going in there. I'm guessing it's a second large tree. My question is it possible to put a third large tree between those two behind the sign? This is in the area closer to the substation. Yeah, exactly. That's where you're drawing, Richard, is basically the kind of area. And I ask because the sign is the entry to the city, and while the further north trees look good and do provide some blockage, that's more effective for people coming from south, going through and out of the city, where we tend to get more people coming in from the south going north. To me, it would seem to be more prudent to put more blockage on that front side, on the more southern side. So, you know, that's what I'm asking, and any comments would be appreciated.
Kevin, can you take that, please?
Sure. Richard, where you drew that circle, there's actually all the existing irrigation is in that spot. So there are some utilities to deal with there. And you see the small dashed circles, those are existing trees. It looks like if we did take out one existing tree, it's a crepe myrtle, the one below that one, we probably could fit in a tree there right behind the sign.
We're taking one more tree on the right-hand side, Kevin. So we yes, thank you.
Yeah, right.
So we're taking a couple of trees and replacing 2 large trees instead. And those were planted by the city, but yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, is there, with the lines and the power coming in and out of these irrigation boxes that are shown here, with a large tree in that location, one, would it crowd the other trees, or 2, would it interfere with any water lines that might be going in and out of those boxes?
We would have to take a closer look at the utilities to see these 2 trees, the shyness and the cedar. They could be moved out a little bit, I think, to give room. But the circles that you see for the proposed trees are the mature size, the diameter of the tree. So
these are
right.
So that is that in scale about 30 feet wide?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then related to it, my other question is, if the trees are grow to 60 feet plus, what are the heights of the wooden poles and then of the metal transmission tank?
Commissioner Altman, I don't believe we have any wooden poles. We have galvanized infrastructure inside of the substation. And mostly we can show on the elevation, those are under, I believe, about 20, 25 feet tall. The towers, that's a totally different conversation. Those are 100 plus feet, some of them, and they're all custom, they're all different because of multiple lines. I believe we have 4 or 5 towers, which we have to hold back because of the restrictions and because of the fire hazard.
Right. Oh, I get that part, and I appreciate that. It's just trying to, you know, if you can sort of separate the view of them by taking the lower portion out, and then there's just these things in the back. It sort of, I think, others may disagree, looks better than if you kind of see the full tower structure and so on. So again, that's why I'm inquiring on this particular area.
Well, we're following you, and as a matter of fact, our concept for design behind this design was to create almost like a backstage drop, a background drop for the scenery for people driving both east and west and south to north. I think we're achieving that purpose with 5 those large cedar trees on the northern part, where the towers, we cannot screen the towers, but these trees, especially for any human being with the of the street, they will see the trees first before they see the towers way in the back. So I think we all agree that on the right hand side, which is the north side, I think we quite nicely achieved that idea of the kind of backstage drop background. We're limited on the left hand side, which is the southern part, if we are facing the substation. But I think our architects and the landscape architects did a very good job creating a kind of scaled approach. So there will be, think of the stage, there are multiple decorations in front of the stage, in the middle, and the back. That's why we have the largest trees in the back. And then we have two other trees, and then they will be all scaled while the trees grow. It will create a different height and again, density, because of density of the trees and different scale will create a nice a view. And again, we can show you one more time. It's hard to put something in a way that will allow trees to grow in the next 5 years or so. These are fast growing trees, and we plan to irrigate. And again, that's the idea. We bring 60 inches boxes instead of 15 gallon. So that's the idea behind.
Yeah, no, I get it. I appreciate it. Just in looking at the I don't know what the photographic display, there was some gaps, and that's really what I'm looking to see is, can those gaps on the southern side kind of be better filled? And if there's a place to put something bigger in, that sort of would work, you know, better. You know, if you look here, you've got the one, I wish I could point to it, but you've got the one large tree on the right. Yep, there. Then you come across, there's another large one, but in between it's lower. And I think that's existing stuff that is more matured from understanding. And I'd love to see things that would fill more in that space between the two new trees going in, just to again, provide more blockage.
Kevin, in your expert opinion, do we have an opportunity?
I think there might be one opportunity. I think, you know, we're trying to save the existing trees as much as we can. And we do have constraints with the existing utilities, but I think we have an opportunity to add one tree right behind the sign, as Richard showed.
Yeah, that would be a help, I think.
Okay. Well, and again, this is our presentation. We have next step, Commissioner Altman, the next step will be construction documents, which will come back to the city for permitting. And if it's all feasible at all, again, trying to avoid underground conductors, electrical distribution, and already installed irrigation, I have no problem to try to satisfy this request. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to just point out, I believe what's happening here is that this is the driveway in, the vehicular driveway into the service center. So you're probably seeing a bit of a gap here just because of that drive aisle to get into service. So. Yeah,
yes, and that I get. It's
okay.
Really
all right. Just want to make sure everybody
to the further southern side that I'm really seeing the kind of gap.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why something behind the sign would actually, I think, work very nicely.
Okay.
If it's
all right.
Perfect. Thank you. Tyrone, do you have any questions or comments?
Thanks. No, thank you for all the work and thought behind this. I really like the plan, and yeah, maybe adding a tree I might help. I think I just worried. I worry about adding a tree behind. I think I could go either way. That it might diminish how the sign stands out. But the overall view would be nicer too. So, but thank you for the work on this and the presentation. And I think this is going to be a very nice enhancement. I have no other real questions on this.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Goff, just ask one more time.
No, actually, they addressed the issue was really on that southern exposure, and their explanation was very understandable. So I'm happy. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. Just a couple of questions on my end. As far as I think, Boris, you had mentioned just like the delivery of the trees and, you know, trucks coming in. How is it looking? I mean, as far as kind of just, you know, supply chain issues and logistics wise, do you guys have, just, or maybe Kevin can answer this, is just have the trees kind of marked out and identified and, in order placed or in place in progress so that there is no delay with the deliveries at that certain point?
Mr. Chairman, it depends when we're ready to proceed forward. We PG&E were committed to get this done as soon as possible. This was a condition for approval of Napa Regional Center and specifically our building permits that have been in with application process since December. So this particular project will require us to complete construction documents and again go through the permitting process. We are ready, and if the city is interested, we are committed to get this done as soon as possible. As a matter of fact, we can do this work this spring. The best time to plant these trees would be mid to late spring, but no later than mid-June. We're committed, we're ready. If we get the permit for this work and of course Napa work, we can get this done this spring. If not, again, the condition number 60 will be to get this work done prior to certificate of occupancy for the Napa Regional Center, which may not happen until year 23 and maybe even 24.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Right now, it depends on the city's decision how quickly you want us to get this done.
Thank you. As far as the open space that you had identified there, or that, I'm sorry, Richard had identified, is that considered just, an open space and, no items are prohibited there, or is that a certain laydown area that you guys are going to use for trucks or other materials?
No,
okay.
There's no lay down outside of substation. We're only using that roadway and driveway for entry. And again, there's not absolutely no traffic, just maintenance from time to time. There will be no lay down. This will be beautifully installed with absolutely minimum use for PG&E. This is for the city to enjoy this beautiful installation.
Got it. Perfect. And my last question is just kind of, with all these, beautification and greenery, what's the intent for like a maintenance schedule or an agreement between the city and PG&E, just to kind of maintain that, that corner lot?
Well, the current agreement with the city that the city will continue to maintain the city installed landscaping, which you see up front.
Correct.
And the PG&E will maintain the additional, which we calculated just over a quarter acre, 12,000 square feet of irrigated space with shrubs and mulch and all the trees. So that will be on PG&E.
Okay. And is there, I guess, just is there some type of consistency or frequency that would occur thereafter? Maybe it's all planted and such, or is that kind of a yearly thing, or how does that work within PG&E grounds?
Oh no, it's not an annual. We have multiple agreements with large landscaping and landscape maintenance companies, and most likely we will extend the same contract as we have for other facilities, including Napa Service Center right now, and we'll just bring the same or a slightly different vendor, but it will be on a monthly basis. It's not an annual; it's a monthly basis. And they'll be checking on levels of irrigation. And of course, from time to time, we'll bring arborists to see the health of the trees, and we maintain our landscape. And I think we're doing a good job overall.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Boris. I appreciate it. All right. Nicole, should we open it up to any of the attendees?
Of course. So if you would like to make public comment, now is the time to do so. We do have a couple of hands raised. Mr. James, I believe you were the first to raise your hand. I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for a really good presentation tonight. I do like what's proposed. It's quite a difference to the last time we saw it. So I do appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I'm kind of picking up what Commissioner Altman said was that some of this landscaping from the southern corner, if you were at the stoplight trying to turn left onto American Canyon, or off 29 onto American Canyon, that's the view I see a lot when I'm waiting on that light. And I see that a lot of this landscaping is north of that sign. So that whole corner is still visible. There's a number of structures inside that compound, like big H-shaped things and, lots of tall things. And I think if you're coming southbound or looking across from the apartments, it would be shielded, but coming northbound, it'd be nice to see if we could get something closer to that corner 7. And I know there are some trees being planted there, but they look pretty in poor shape, or not poor shape, but very small. And the city, historically, I've seen that it hasn't, don't pay much attention to trees they've planted in recent history. I know there's a lot of on Teresa they've planted that have died recently. So I'm just concerned about the maintenance. And I think if you were to do it, it sounds like you're committed to doing it, and it would be nice to get more landscaping in that corner toward the intersection of American Canyon Road. But I appreciate all the work you've put in, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. Thanks.
All right. Beth Marcus, please unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. I just had one quick question. In light of all the recent fires caused by PG&E lines, is there any concern about these trees being so close to the power lines?
Thank you for the question. We work with our transmission distribution folks and teams, and we're following the safety guidelines. So the trees are shown within the safe distance from the high voltage power lines on the north side. And that's as close as we can get. And again, considering mature trees, 60 feet tall, 30 feet wide. So we believe it is a safe installation as we propose in planting of those trees. And there are no power lines going, but underground conductors going on the southern part, just only on the north part. Those are major high voltage power lines, transmission lines.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And we don't have anybody else in attendance.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, closing public comment. Do we have a motion on the floor? Tammy?
I had another discussion point, if we can keep discussing it just briefly.
Sure.
So a number of us, and also the comment from Chris James, we've touched upon that southern end, and I understand PG&E's desire to keep that open to not block the sign. And there was also the constraint of some electrical work that would, prevent something there in that southern end. But what about the possibility, and this is beyond the scope of what we originally asked PG&E to do, but I'm just going to throw this out while we are still discussing it, since this may be the chance that we have to beautify that corner. What about moving the sign closer to the corner, and then we can put another tree behind it to block more of the view, provide more cover? And maybe that's input. We need something from the city side to see if that's even something that's feasible.
Brent?
The sign placement precedes my arrival at the city. However, I do remember the staff at the time, when I was new here, talked about the extensive work it took to locate the sign where it is. I know that there are existing sewer or water easements adjacent, rather parallel with Broadway. And so it's possible that if it's pulled closer to either American Canyon Road or Broadway, it may interfere with utility easements that underlay along parallel to Broadway. But I can't personally say that I have knowledge of exactly what went into how it got placed where it was. So it doesn't sound like a hard no, but it may be if we dig up how it was, what's there, that may be an outcome of a research today.
Madam Chair, this is Bill Ross. I'm not familiar about the restrictions either, but I would join Brent. If that's material to a decision by the commission, we can find out what the basis for the current placement is. But I recall something similar to Brent's explanation about limiting easements for utilities, resulting in the same placement, but that's not certain.
Okay, thank you.
This is Richard Price with DGA. I'm just going to throw out a thought here, only because of my varied background in all kinds of projects. As signs get closer to streets and sidewalks, they tend to be more vulnerable to vandalism. I don't know if that had any play in where the sign is located now. It may have been more technical in terms of, like, as Brent mentioned, underground utilities and whatnot. But there is that thought. So just keep that in mind if you wanted to pursue that. And then obviously, as Boris had mentioned, we have a lot of high voltage underground electrical over here. So it's possible that the city could move it, but I don't know how far it could move before it would start to interfere with underground utilities from the electrical side. It appears here that there's, if you see this SS sewer, it's a sanitary sewer line that's underneath here. So that's very close to the sign. That's what this line represents here, that SS line. So that may be restricting it from moving this direction. These may be restricting it from moving too far south towards American Canyon Drive.
Thank you, Richard. That's very insightful. Appreciate that description there.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like the placement because I think just from a visibility standpoint that you get, you can see the sign from a lot of different angles. If you move it up closer, I think that would reduce the visibility from different angles of the whole big street. So I kind of actually think that might be a part of why it was set back so far, because it's visible from every angle, and even kind of close if you're coming up to the street, you pull it up, people, the drivers going south can see it if they, if they're within somewhere like probably 25, 40-ish feet. So the sign's just very visible there. So I would just put that out there. I kind of like the location.
Thank you for your comments, everyone. Erica?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Carvalho touched on something that I was concerned about immediately when we talked about moving that sign further closer to the corner, is the visibility triangle. I haven't looked at the Caltrans for speed diagrams. Usually the bigger the triangle, the faster you're going as far as the clearances. And that could probably have been another setback requirement. I'm talking out of turn as far as how clear that is in Caltrans standards, but I know different cities, if you're going a certain speed, you need to have certain clearances on your corners. And on 29, we all know how fast people can be driving. So that would be my concern about moving that from where it is now.
Thank you. definitely great commentary on just the movement of the sign. Any other comments you got going on before we move on? Nope, not looking like it. Do we have a motion on the floor for the approval of the landscaping plan?
I'll move to approve a landscaping plan for the PG&E substation at 3331 Broadway Street, as it is a condition of approval for the PG&E Regional Center, file number PL21-0011 and PL21-0022.
Second.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you, Andrew. Nicole, can we do roll call, please?
Of course, Commissioner Altman.
Assuming that all sides are amenable to exploring the additional tree that we talked about earlier, I am an aye on this, yes.
Great. Commissioner Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Navarro.
Aye.
Vice Chair Wong.
I agree with Eric's notation. I would like to see an extra tree added behind the sign if it can be done. Thank you.
And Chair Malari.
Aye. Great, thank you. Richard, you can unshare your screen now if you'd like.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Boris. All right, guys, moving on to the next item on business here. We have the 6th cycle housing element update presentation for the recommendation just to receive and file the presentation. Williams, is that you again? Brent. All
yes.
right.
Thank you, Chair Malari. I'm playing with my screen view so I can find my, I had it right here, my presentation. I wanted to share with the Planning Commission that we'll be embarking on a new housing element. It's once in every 8 years. So it doesn't come around very often. And there have been a lot of changes in state law since the last housing element was adopted. This one is affectionately known as the 6th cycle housing element. I don't remember the last one being called the 5th cycle housing element, but okay. But anyway, wanted to kind of get you familiar with the housing element and some of the issues that we're looking at. Of course, we know how important housing is. It always has been a difficult issue to have housing that's available for everyone to afford and live, which is a very important issue. And it just seems to get more difficult all the time. And kind of as a preview of the presentation, of course, this is always being noticed, of course, by Sacramento legislators. And so there's a lot of pressure on local jurisdictions to make it easier for housing development. And so anyway, I'll share my screen and kind of run through for you quite what it's all about. Okay, so here we go. The housing element has a very important purpose. As I mentioned, it's really intended to meet today's and in the future income needs of everyone for housing. So, you know, there's folks that would like a nicer house, and then those that don't have the means, but they need housing too. And so it's really housing for all levels of our society. And that's a very extensive list of people. As we all know, we're individuals with different needs and lifestyles, And it's important that a place that we live is someplace that's supportive and comfortable for us. The housing element is also has a list of policies that address housing needs for a variety of people and conditions. And then I'll get into this acronym RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Allocation. This is something that the housing element needs to show that we're able to allocate. So some of the basics I've already mentioned, it's an 8-year term. We're closing out on our current housing element. Of course, William always does a great job the last few years on explaining how we are at accomplishing our 5th cycle housing element. And so we're about to embark on the next one. As we look at the new housing element, we also look back on how we accomplished the last housing element. And so that's always important to recognize, maybe celebrate what was accomplished, maybe some things that we thought we could do, we couldn't do. And so it's really a point of reflection on how things went. Maybe new things need to be tried, or we keep doing some things that worked out well. Of course, I mentioned the housing needs assessment. Housing conditions constantly are changing. Generally speaking, they get more expensive for most of us. And I'd also mentioned housing sites. I'll get a little bit into that, and along with the strategy to accomplish our allocation. And then there's a new term, affirmatively affirm fair housing. It sounds a bit redundant, affirmatively affirm, but I guess there are a lot of jurisdictions in California. American Canyon is a very progressive place, and so the city has done a lot to affirm fair housing, but statewide, I guess it hasn't been embraced as much. So not only do you need to affirm fair housing, but I guess affirmatively affirm is like really show that you're doing it. Some of the things that the housing development does not do, the city is required to accommodate future development, but as we know, the city itself doesn't build housing. That's done generally by the private sector, although there are nonprofit builders. But for the most part, this is a private sector activity. And so the plan here is to set the table and make it easy for the private sector largely to do what it does well in building houses. The housing element itself doesn't provide funding, although there are policies that do encourage the city to seek funding sources, grants and the like, fee programs. By successfully accomplishing the housing element, it qualifies the city for funding. So it doesn't provide funding, but funding is definitely a big part of this. Projects still need to go through the development review process, although there are certain state laws that give exceptions for affordable housing that are different rules than we would require of market rate housing. So the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. The Association of Bay Area Governments, that's the 9-county region in our San Francisco Bay Area. It is allocated a certain number of dwelling units that it must accommodate in an 8-year period. And that comes from Sacramento and the Department of Housing and Community Development. And so in the Bay Area, the state has allocated 441,000 dwelling units that need to be built to accommodate our econometric demand for housing in an 8-year period. That's a big number over an 8-year period. And so what ABAG does is it adopts criteria that it then applies and then allocates every jurisdiction's fair share, which we have a little more than 100 municipal jurisdictions and then the 9 counties. And so American Canyon's sort of fair share of this larger amount is 446 dwelling units. And so I kind of did some math. I think 441,000, 446. It's kind of easy math, but it's 1/10 of 1%. So a lot of jurisdictions kind of feel that they're kind of getting an unfair amount allocated to it, but I'm not so sure we have a lot to complain about because it's 1/10 of 1%. And if you look at our 20,000 resident population compared to the Bay Area region of about 7.7 million, we're actually 0.27 tenths of a percent. So I know these are small numbers, but we're actually, the amount that we're expected to grow is actually small in proportion to our population relative to the Bay Area overall. So kind of want to get some good news there. If we assume that mandates are bad, we have a comparatively low mandate relative to our overall population within the Bay Area. This is kind of the point. If we look at our last housing element, it includes a table as long as a graphic depiction of our crystal ball and where we thought housing could go to accommodate the last cycle's regional housing needs allocation. Back then, we had a smaller one, 392. Now it's 446. There's jurisdictions in California where they're getting like double and triple. I mean, there's some big numbers. And so ours is more, but a little bit more. But anyway, where we had anticipated and planned for housing, as you can see, largely follows along either side of Highway 29. And so we have these sort of multi-family projects here, A, B, and C. These are the Reliant Apartments, Canyon Crossings. We have the Valley View project. We have the Village at Vintage Ranch. We had contemplated maybe some housing going in at the Adobe Lumber site. There's a lot of vacant and underutilized properties along Highway 29. This was all before the Broadway District Plan was approved, but there are some parallels today with the way in which the Broadway District Plan was approved in relation to where housing is allocated. That kind of follows along with where we had anticipated housing to go in our last housing cycle, which was approved in 2014. There are some properties here around Oat Hill, and those have estate density zoning, at least they did at the time. Of course, the Oat Hill has been changed to medium density, but those were low density sites that were vacant and could accommodate some of the upper income accommodations. But that was what we had in the, well, I guess our today's housing element in the fifth cycle. If we look at what actually happened since then in the way of construction, well, the A, B, and C got built. So we guessed that right. None of these sites that were along here in the middle materialized as a housing site. But we did have these little green pins you'll see here. We had 13 accessory dwelling units. Those weren't even contemplated back then. I think we knew about them, but we weren't counting on them. They weren't part of the mix. But nevertheless, they are a way in which affordable housing can be provided at a reasonably low cost compared to just building a house in many other ways. And then we have one purple pin, and this is I'll say a legacy site. This is a building permit that was issued and finalized for a house that was moved onto the property in 1982. And this is the year the permit was issued and finalized, and I saw the real estate listing for the house. I'm sure a happy family will live there. So in the whole fifth cycle period, we had one single family home. I don't see anyone's jaw dropping, but okay, I'll move on. Okay, here we are with our current housing element in front of us, and I put the county-wide RENA because there's not that many jurisdictions. And I think it's kind of interesting to see how we stack up to the others. Obviously, you know, they all have different populations. And so you look at these numbers and think about it in terms of, okay, what have they got today versus what are they being expected to do? I didn't really do a calculation for that, but here we are at 446. Of course, we get the top row. I do know that there was questions in the community. Oh, American Canyon, you know, why are we taking everybody's housing allocation? And the housing allocation that we have comes from the Association of Area Governments. So the other counties can't just push them all south. It doesn't work that way. It's an allocation from the regional agency. There is a very complicated process for the allocation itself, and then there's appeal periods. Really knock yourself out if you want to dig into it. But these numbers came from the Association of Area Governments. I've also heard, oh, American Canyon, you know, they get all the low-income units allocated. Well, I didn't put it on here, but it's not so hard to calculate as a percentage of total, you know, how much 112 is of 446 versus 31 of 119, 504. I mean, you can do that kind of math, it's not that hard. We actually have a comparatively low amount of low and very low as a percentage of our total. And we have a somewhat comparatively higher amount of above moderate. And this kind of gets into the methodology that ABAG used. The methodology is very complicated, but one of the things that they did is they intentionally made communities that had high income have a greater percentage of low income to kind of even things out. And so American Canyon, I don't know, we're not Palo Alto economically, we're not, you know, but, you know, we're fine, but anyway, we did pretty well if you are looking at mandates being bad, and if low and very low income, those are difficult housing units to accommodate. We have a comparatively low percentage of that compared to some of our peers. And so we don't have a lot to complain about.
They have Mr. Goff.
Just a quick question about the accessory dwelling units that you mentioned, the 13 that were built. Do those generally fall within the low or the very low income or low income area?
They do. The rules that applied in the last housing element is when we get an application for a accessory dwelling unit, we ask the applicant, the homeowner generally, to inform us, you know, how much you're going to charge for rent. and you know, assume that they're telling the truth. And if the rent falls within the low or very low affordability, ding, ding, we got to count it. So that was the rules at the time. I haven't informed myself well enough to know going forward in this cycle if that will work. But you know, it's pretty hard to be able to verify what a homeowner is renting their accessory dwelling unit, you know, under the best circumstances. But that's generally, yes, it is a way of being able to count it as towards your low and very low income.
Thank you.
I did want to mention that the city has 2 existing RENA transfer agreements with Napa County. And so I think that maybe where there's a perception of they just sort of push all their RENA on us. Those transfer agreements were done for very good reason in open session by the city council at the time, and it's kind of like a contract. And so everyone's eyes were wide open, and it was agreement. So one of the agreements occurred in 2010, and it applied to 2 housing cycles, the last one and this one. Napa County made out so well with such a low assessment, the county didn't need to use it. But they got a much higher RHNA this time, and so they need to. And so the reason that contract was agreement happened between the city and the county, it was at a time when the city wanted to annex land for Watson Ranch. And in order to get the county's agreement that to amend our sphere of influence and our urban limit line to accommodate adding Watson Ranch, because it was only a small part of it that was in the city agreed upon taking on some of the county's fair housing or regional housing allocation. And that kind of made sense because there's 1,200 homes in Watson Ranch. And so, well, city, you're annexing a lot of land for housing. We need places to put housing. We want housing in urban. So it made sense. And so it was an agreement. And as we all know now, got annexed, and we just saw a beautiful presentation last night. So that's one of the two agreements. The second agreement occurred in 2017, and that was to help finance the Valley View Affordable Seniors Housing Project. It's very expensive to build affordable housing because there's so much deep subsidies. The county came in towards the end of the process with $2.2 million to help the project move forward. I mean, that it took years to get the financing to begin with. And so the county provided $2.2 million with an agreement that the city would take on a portion of the county's regional housing needs allocation in this time. So, so those two agreements, I think they're all done at the time for a good reason, and for things that made the city better. And so those will be accounted for in our current upcoming housing element. I believe overall it's 176 units, but I'm going to go off memory. I think it's in the staff report if you wanted to check, but it's about 176 units. And it's sprinkled among the 4 different categories. So obvious question is, where do you put new housing? Well, the city has done a very good job. Planning Commission, of course, has had a large role in this. The Watson Ranch project has 1,200 units. Obviously, those are not all going to get built in 8 years. That's a much longer, it's probably a longer time period than that. But a portion of them are. None of the Watson Ranch was not part of our last housing element. If you remember that graphic I showed you, there's no Watson Ranch sites shown there. And so that's a whole new opportunity. The Broadway District, of course, here in the middle, we had a variety of sites in there in our last housing element. And so it plays a role, but because some of the sites might have already been used in our last cycle, there's some hoops we have to go through. And then, of course, here we have Oat Hill. The lower parcel was in our last housing element, but it was assumed to be 1 unit per acre. It's now been bumped up to medium density for 85 units. It's 10 acres, so we assume like 10 houses. So now it's 85 houses, so it's a big difference. It's a material difference. And then the upper parcel has 219 units, something in that neighborhood. So there's a lot of units there. That was not part of the last housing element. So we have sites. And so that's it's really good news, because there's a lot of jurisdictions in California that are mostly built out, and they probably used all the good sites the last time. So we're in a much better position than a lot of other jurisdictions. And then, of course, I mentioned accessory dwelling units, 13 over 8 years, not a large number, but there are some that we can kind of project those forward. And it's always the hardest to find ways in which to demonstrate to the state that we can accommodate low and very low income, because they're hard sites to fund and build. I kind of mentioned, just for all needs, of course, that includes group homes. There's a lot of people that have needs for a variety of housing types. State law requires that the cities provide zoning that accommodates people with disabilities and a variety of life conditions, because they're people too. They deserve a place to live. And so that's the reasoning. And the state is looking specifically to whether or not the city has done that. Now, we have zoning that was done years ago. And so we've largely met a lot of the requirements for it, but it is an issue that we will need to document in this new housing element. The state has been working overtime on new laws that affect housing. And they're complicated. And so there have been 64 since 2017. And I've got a smattering of them in front of you. And they're not always easy to read. Just because you're elected to Sacramento doesn't mean you're an English major. They can be really hard to understand. And so, but these are some of the ones kind of broken down by the area in which they address. And so, homelessness, there's like, well, there's 3 laws there. I mean, there's fair housing, there's a lot of rules out there that we are beholden to, that we have to make sure that we address in our housing element, or the state will not certify it. So that's just something I think everyone needs to know. A large part also is reaching out to our community, and there are a lot of ways in which we can and will be doing that. We have right today a housing element website, and in that housing element website we have a lot of information, but we have a survey in English and Spanish. It's anonymous, just takes a few minutes. It helps us to understand what's important to you as we look at types of housing and programs, priorities. We also have a really nice benefit this year. I think because of all those new state laws, the state's kind of taken pity on us and has provided funding to the regional ABAG to provide additional resources to help us with our housing element. And so there's, within Napa and Sonoma County, there's an organization called the Collaborative, and they are funded by the Associated Bay Area Governments. There are similar ones elsewhere in the Bay Area that's going to have the same mission and same information, but they have developed a video for American Canyon in English and Spanish that helps explain the housing element. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. It's simple and easy, I think, to understand. It's a great resource. And let's see, we have some virtual workshops on specific topics. We'll be coming back to you in the Planning Commission for some workshops. We have one scheduled, hosted by the Collaborative at the City Council on March 1st. So that's coming right up. I have a simple presentation. They have a little more complicated one. They're a little more into it. And so they can really kind of dive a little deeper. And we'll have more time too for quick Q&A and input. We'll be doing pop-up events. Where spring's coming, there's a lot of events going on in town, kind of look into that. I know that the commission has offered to help. I haven't forgotten, and I may be calling on you to kind of help out with that. So it should be rewarding. Of course, we have newsletters, we have social media, we have Facebook and Nextdoor. And those are things that we just do anyway in a host of things, but we'll be doing it as well for the housing element. There are certain review periods required by state law. There's a 30-day public review period for the draft housing element. And then after that's done, there's a draft element adopted. Then it goes to the state for 90 days in their review, and then they write a letter. And so there's a very interesting process through all of this. But definitely the public is an important component so that the policies are relevant as best as we can do to accommodate needs. Kind of back again to the affirmatively affirm, we need to really ensure that we are specifically reaching out to historically underrepresented individuals and groups as part of our outreach effort, or the state won't certify it. So it's going to be done. We will, of course, compile a variety of comments and input, and to the extent that we can, we want to be able to draw a line between comments and policies to show that we're listening and reflecting the community's priorities. Our schedule, there is a January of next year certification deadline. I was just talking to our consultant team today about that, because we really need to really drill down on our schedule. And each region of California has to update their housing element, but because all the housing elements have to go to the State Department of Housing and Community Development to be approved, they just can't have everyone on the same schedule. So what they've done is they've kind of divided the state up into regions. And so Southern California, which of course is much larger than us, is ahead of us by a year. And so a lot of those jurisdictions are finishing up. And what I learned today is among the 400 plus jurisdictions in Southern California, only about 3 have been able to be certified on time. Tells you how rigorous HCD has been in their review. You think about that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do our best, hopefully learn lessons from Southern California, you know, see what they might have done that maybe we won't, you know, trip up on ourselves, and we're going to do the very best we can. So we are going to be doing surveys, interviews, workshops, working on policy development this spring. We'll have a draft element, hopefully this early in early summer. I mentioned there's a 30-day public review period. We'll have a workshop with our planning commission. For that, we should have Spanish interpretation for that workshop. Once it is approved under a draft, then it goes to the state for a 90-day review period. They will write a comment letter. We need to address those comments. And then somewhere in there, we go to the Airport Land Use Commission. And then hopefully in the late fall, in the fall sometime, we go back to the Planning Commission and Council for approval. And then it goes back to HCD for 30 days. And then hopefully they like what we did. So that's kind of how it works. It is a project under, Housing Element is a project under the California Environmental Quality Act. And so there will also be an environmental review that will occur with this. Generally speaking, since we have zone today, you know, already with zoning that can accommodate our regional housing needs, we're in a good position to not bump into any serious environmental issues. So that's a real plus for the city. In a lot of cities where they have to rezone land to accommodate their housing need, that's a little more complicated. Mm-hmm. And so, but anyway, there is going to be an environmental document prepared consistent with that. It is approved when the final element goes to hearing. So we'll be working away on that. I know I've talked a lot, and there's only so much humans can absorb, so I get it. So I wanted to just kind of come back again to what can we do today, I wanted to just reiterate, please visit our housing element. Jen Kanzenbach and Nicole worked really hard on that website, and they've done a great job. So they deserves to be used. And in there, you'll find our community survey in English and Spanish. And we have, of course, our Housing Element 101 video in English and Spanish. We also have a place where you can sign up to be informed. I think if you've already signed up to be informed, then you're probably good. We'll be sending you things. And then next Tuesday, we're having a workshop with the City Council with some really smart people who will be presenting and diving a little deeper into the housing element. And I'm ready for your questions whenever you like.
Thank you, Brent. Great presentation. Any comments, questions from the commissioners?
I would like to say, Brent, I did visit the website and I did play the videos, and they are very well done and very informative.
Thank you.
Here, here, I agree. Is there a way we could get some previews or some updates on the surveys, seeing how the community is responding?
Certainly, that's a good idea. We could maybe take some steps along the way to see how it's going.
Yeah, as it's going, maybe just, you know, some kind of insights as to what the public is kind of trending to or concerned about or interested in.
Tammy, do you have a question, comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Sure.
Director Cooper, thank you for the great presentation. I heard you say that we only had one house built in the previous 8 years in the 5th housing cycle?
One single family home.
That seems incredulous. I mean, I know I'm new to the Planning Commission, but it seems like we've approved so many housing projects.
Well, I can think of two. Both of them are off of Rio Del Mar.
Okay.
And we're waiting.
I guess it just takes a while for it all to catch up. And to your comment about the video about Watson Ranch, I was impressed as well. It was very stunning to see. I did have a more practical question. So you had commented about how approval for these housing elements are divided up into regions, and that there's, I think you said something like 400 cities in already going through this process in Southern California, and a majority of them have not gotten approval. So is there any type of penalty if you don't get approved on time?
There's two that come to mind. One of them is because most cities have to rezone land in order to meet their regional housing needs. If they don't have a certified element on time, then they have 1 year to rezone the land instead of 3 years. So that's one of them. And then there are some types of grants and funding that requires a certified element in order to qualify. So for whatever period you don't have a certified housing element, the city or jurisdiction would not qualify to receive those funds.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No, good.
I was just wondering how many more ADUs are in the pipeline?
Oh, I know William he has a nifty spreadsheet, although I don't have that handy.
Okay.
I don't know if William.
Does it look like more coming up? Like, I mean, so we've gotten in this time frame 13. Does it look like it's slowing down or speeding up?
Yeah, Commissioner Navarro, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but we've been steadily getting like 3 to 4 every year, which is kind of like a trend that's a lot more than our 5th cycle time. Because in the 5th cycle, there were only like 1 or 2 a year, but now we're getting 3 or 4. And I think as people hear more about it, about the process to do it, and how the impact fees have been greatly reduced in the past 5 years, we'll see some more, and maybe we can step that up to maybe 4 or 5 a year. But it's getting popular.
And Commissioner Navarro, you know, there are the ADU heroes with a nonprofit called the Napa Sonoma ADU Center, and they have floor plans that have been pre-approved. They have webinars on how to finance and be a landlord and fund your project. They have so many resources. They're just the best thing in the world. If anybody is ever interested in understanding how to do an ADU, they're great. So I do mention them in our around town updates and try to get the word out, because with a resource like that, I don't know how you know, we can experience anything other than an increase in ADUs, because you know, it's a lot to take on, building something of your own house and becoming a landlord. That is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And so understanding that, having someone to help somebody is just great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So it looks like Bridgest will be acknowledging it and filing it away. Yeah.
I wanted to give you a cliff notes of what's to come.
Great.
And we'll be talking about it.
Great. Thank you, Brent. All right, moving along. The floor is yours still, Brent, for any active planning projects that you'd like to share with the commissioners here.
Yes, okay. I wanted to, let's see, I'll just, as usual, kind of cover the good stuff. On our active project list, I wanted to let you know we have a new business called Un Poco Loco Taco. And that's over at the casino. So I don't know, I haven't eaten there yet, but I'm going to bet it's a good bet.
No pun intended, huh?
No pun intended. So anyway, that's a new business that was approved, staff level approval. It was a fairly easy one. The casino has already had approval for a food trailer. And so this is, I would say, an upgrade. And so I believe it's already up and running. Our friends at the Napa Logistics Park, they have basically built out the Napa Logistics Park and have found that there is much less traffic generated from it than was assumed way back when there was an environmental impact report that made the assumption there might be an automobile factory out there. I mean, some very intensive industrial uses. And so they have applied to the city to modify their mitigation measure to reflect more of what's actually happened out there than what was assumed under, you know, a scenario in the EIR. And so that's going to be evaluated through an environmental document, and we've been talking with the applicant and their consultants about preparing that. We have our friends at Fume Cannabis. They've encountered a lot of difficulties with COVID and supply chains, and they've got a new partner. And so anyway, they're working away as best they can with their new partner. We have HDL as our cannabis experts, and bless them for understanding all those rules. And they've been really helpful to be able to respond to their questions and changes. here and there. But at some point they'll get through it. Court Tree, this was a business that is a contractor to PG&E that just set up shop on Green Island Road, and they have a cease and desist order because they need to get a design permit. It can be a staff level because it's a fairly simple one technically, and so we're just kind of working through those issues. Just earlier, maybe about a week or so ago, they modified their application to say that they only want it for 2 years. And so that's, kind of changes the way in which we look at it. And our city attorney has been a big help. Normally when we have design permits, we don't have sunset clauses. Because possession's 9/10 of the law. Try to take that design permit out of my hands. So it's not easy all the time. So, when it's 2 years, it's like, okay, extra things we need to talk about. The Giovannoni Logistics Park, that of course is a large industrial park just south of the Napa Logistics off Green Island Road. We had a meeting today about their administrative draft environmental impact report. So looking forward to making some progress on that. But we're working away on it. Had a meeting today about it. The Hampton Inn Hotel, of course, the council approved the second reading and the use permit back in December. The ordinance was effective at the beginning of January. Talked to the applicant owner representative when he built the hotel. He isn't sure. He says that the owner is working on another hotel in another state, and he'll let me know. But ready to go. That was really a great project. Everyone kind of hung together and worked through it, and I think we're all happy. Could be happy with the outcome. We just need to build it, and we're ready. The SCG Commerce 217 project, that was one that the Planning Commission approved also about a year ago. It was appealed by the union organization, and the applicant is still contemplating modifying the environmental documentation to address the appeal. Have asked for a 6-month continuance to September. On this review, I've updated a lot of our active grading and building plans. We have a lot, of course, the Planning Commission's approved a lot of projects. We mentioned Watson Ranch. All those have kind of now moved into their construction documents. And so, we have a lot of work being done to review and plan check and move forward on a variety of construction documents. Including our friends at PG&E who we talked to tonight. I know they have a rough grading permit over there on their site already, and so they're already kind of working away on it. The one that's near the finish line, of course, is the urgent North Bay Urgent Care building at Napa Junction over by between Dunkin' Donuts and Tractor Supply. They're just about finished. Talked to Buzz a couple of days ago. PG&E's been a little slow. Anyway, they are going to be hopefully ready to have a grand opening in April. So we'll keep you informed because they're probably going to have a ribbon cutting, and those are always fun. And that's, let's see. I guess I've just one other thing, Home to Suites Hotel. They have a lot of their construction permits ready to go. They were a little slow on getting their fire alarm, fire suppression plans. I remember talking to their representative and they had reasons for that. But they're getting close to being ready to build. One of the issues that they had approached the city about is a reimbursement agreement for some of those physical improvements they have to build. A portion of that appears to be ready to be moved forward. I think it's going to be going to the council on March 15. So hopefully that will help them with their financing and moving that one forward, because we'd like to see that one go forward as well. Super excited about Main Street extension that they've got planned. That one too, you know, is another one that was a lot of effort. Once it's done, I think we'll have a lot of pride in the way it looks and some of those things that will get done. And then this finally, you might have noticed the Circle K convenience store framing is up like all of a sudden. So it's a big visual change, but of course that's what's going on there at the corner of Napa Junction Road and Highway 29. And that's my update in case you have any questions.
Great, thank you.
For you. You know, I was looking out in Watson Ranch and thinking about Lemus Point. It's that modular development. All those white wrapped things out there. Is that part of that?
It is. It is. They're working on scheduling a pre-construction meeting. So they have all their permits have been issued, and they're getting ready. I think the site's prepped. So yeah, they're gonna be ready to start assembling. And because they're modular, it should move pretty fast.
Because I know they talked about you know, inviting us to watch them drop the cranes, and I kind of want to see that. So
okay,
keep us on the list.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Maybe a barbecue we could watch.
Great. Thank you.
I'm glad to share what we got going on.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of projects and exciting things that are going on, just in and around the city. Everywhere you can just walk around, drive around. Now that people are, you know, more out and about, definitely kind of going to seeing that new construction feel around the city. So, thank you. Moving on to the next item. Any commissioner items that we'd like to address here? Okay, I got two that I just wanted to bring up. First off, the Hearts Your Parks around the city. If you guys have not taken a look at that, please. They are around and everywhere around the city. Also, ACCPF is having an auction, online auction and bidding for the Hearts. So please take a look at the website. And, you know, the artists here are in and around American Canyon, Sacramento, and also I think there's like one or two from Vallejo that really helped and you know, put their artwork on display. So, and then also just I got an email about the APA conference. Maybe I just wanted to throw it out there to Brent and kind of just figuring out who's going and how that will work, or anyone interested in partaking. I know it's online and also in person on 2 dates. So just throwing it out there. Commissioner Goff, did you have a comment?
I was just going to mention about the Hearts for Parks that the auction closes, I think, Sunday. So if you're interested, go check them out quick.
Isn't it nice suddenly seeing art all over the city?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Love it. I have one in my backyard from last year, so I'm really have identified the 2 or 3 that will supplement what I've got going on. So.
Well, great. There's no other, Tammy?
Yes, I just wanted to add one thing. I know when we talked about the Napa Cove housing project, we had a very lengthy discussion about the traffic, and we talked about traffic calming. So I just wanted to invite all of you, if you have not been down Wetlands Edge Road recently, particularly the last block by the park, please come drive down that road, go as fast as you want, and check out the new speed humps that the city has installed. They're basically big speed bumps with cutouts for emergency service vehicles. We are the first residential street in the city to have these new traffic calming items. So I encourage you all to come and check it out.
Thank you. With that being said, I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a great evening. Take
Thank
care.
you.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Crystal.
No problem. Take care.